Hello once again, audience. I am Twins Play Taken, and this is a special little video I'd make. Now, in this video, I'm gonna be discussing the best nations to start off with in Europa Universalis to discover one certain aspect of the game. So, first of all, I would like to start off with Muscovy. Muscovy is a interesting civilization in the way that it starts off with vassals. Now, this does help to teach you the point of vassalization, or the fact that you do not need to necessarily absolutely obliterate someone to annex land, and that you can instead peacefully vassalize them, and then annex them 10 years later, once you have gained enough relations with them. Plus, another advantage with Muscovy is that you do not need to really worry about navy. Because, as you can see, well, one, you don't start off with any navy, and two, even once you conquer Novgorod, which 9 out of 10 games happens, I have seen 1 or 2 games when Novgorod actually eventually conquers Muscovy and actually forms Russia. But, but once you conquer Muscovy, Novgorod as Muscovy, you only really have a couple of ports, so you don't really need to worry about, navy. Secondly, second point about Muscovy, you get to use a bit of colonization, because due to the fact of the Siberian peninsula, I guess you could call it, and Siberian frontier, yeah, that's a good way to call it. See, the Siberian frontier, adjacent territory is automatically discovered when a colony is built, and you also get colonists +1. That means that you could effectively have a game where you don't need to focus on it, but it is optional to be able to colonize, which is pretty sweet. Second nation, England. Now, England is an interesting choice, as it both introduces you to the parliamentary system, as well as it gives you some reasonably fun content, in the way that you can conquer Scotland, and as well as having to fight off France, which is admittedly a bit hard. However, due to the reasonably recent update of Common Sense, France has been nerfed, which is good. It was also used to be worse in the older versions, as you started off in the 100 Years' War with France, which sucked. Another advantage with England is that you can also peacefully vassalize these guys, so it does again introduce you to vassalization. Plus, once again, it also quite often England will colonize Canada, so it gives you the ability to have a bit of fun. However, it is not necessary to colonize America, and instead you can still just focus on Europe, which is an option. However, that new players can take. However, colonizing is extremely profitable and can bring you immense power, as it actually did to England, as it was a combination of the Industrial Revolution and colonization that did gain England so much power. Yes, we're going history here. Okay, next point, Portugal. Now, Portugal is interesting choice, as Portugal is the only nation in the whole of the world that starts off with an explorer. Yes, Portugal starts off with an explorer. I do not remember his name, however, he's a 333 explorer, which is, well, it's technically at the halfway mark, but it's considered above average, unless, of course, you have like 100 naval tradition. Plus, if we look at, I think it's the trade map mode, yes, can we see it here? Let me just check. Okay, no, you can't see it. However, Portugal does get a special bonus where it has a certain wind current that flows this way, which means that Portugal is able to more easily reach America and Africa. Plus, due to the fact that they start with the province in Africa, Ceuta, Western Africa, northwestern Africa, you could say, not Africa, because that could also be like down the Cape. But yeah, they start off with a province in Africa called Ceuta, which means that it is possible for them to expand into Morocco. However, there are religion issues with that, as you can see here. Morocco is Sunni, which gets when you try and convert Sunni, you get a -2% missionary strength penalty. Okay, next one, we have the Ottomans. Now, the Ottomans is quite interesting, as it enters you to the idea of cause. Now, well, one of them is cause. So, as you can see, the Ottomans start off with quite a lot of cause, which means that you can reasonably easily expand without too much bad stuff happening. Because normally in Europa Universalis 4, you need to fabricate a claim using a diplomat, which takes a year. Whereas as the Ottomans, you start with a claim on pretty much all of the Anatolian area, which is pretty cool. You may notice that you do not start with a claim on Byzantium. However, you do get a mission. You could start off with a mission called City of the World's Desire, which gives you an automatic claim on Constantinople. Plus, if you go in to the game and take Constantinople, you get you do get the bonus for completing the mission, but you also get a special event which gives you, I'm pretty sure it's +3 base tax, manpower, and production to Constantinople. Plus, it's automatically called, it automatically converts to the Sunni religion, and it becomes your capital. Plus, you become, empire, which is pretty sweet, as that gives you many increased things. As you can see, if you look at up in the top right, the government ranks. See, the 3 governments rank: Duchy, Kingdom, and Empire. The Ottomans start as a kingdom, but once you take Constantinople, as I explained with that event, you become an empire, which means that if you have the common sense expansion, it decreases the time that it takes for you to concentrate on national focus, which I won't explain, but that is pretty useful. And I'm pretty sure it also changes your national unrest and a couple other things. But yeah, it's really good. Okay, my next point is France. Well, actually, it's sort of France/Burgundy. Okay, well, like, in the Frankian area. So basically, I'll explain France and then a bit of Burgundy. But France starts off with some very powerful ideas. As you can see, you get national manpower modifier and diplomatic reputation, which is quite good. The manpower means that you can effectively take more losses in a war and still be able to continue. You also have some very powerful ideas. As you can see, look, income from vassals, diplomatic annexation, which is quite good. Elan, 20% morale of armies. That is probably one of the best military ideas in the game, and it's your second idea, so you could effectively get it by the time you reach like admin tech 6 effectively. Like once you reach admin tech 5, you get it, plus like you could get it very quickly. Another thing is, if we look here, technology costs -10%. That is towards the end of the row, however it still can be completed quite quickly, but that is also a very powerful idea, as that effectively decreases the time it takes for you to advance in technology, which means that you're effectively better equipped than your opponents. Lastly, their ambition is 5% discipline. Now, discipline is very important in military combat, as it determines both how little casualties you sustain and how much damage you inflict, basically. So it controls basically how much damage you take and inflict, which is very good. Moving on to my next one, Burgundy. Burgundy does not have as good ideas as you can see here, although it does have discipline, which is pretty sweet, and manpower. Yeah, it also starts off with a thing called a personal union, which is what Burgundy is good for and introducing into this game. You start off as you can see here, you start off in a personal union over Brabant, Holland, and Flanders. Now, basically, it's pretty cool, as it means that you can effectively control the army. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. You also control Nevers. They're a vassal of Burgundy, which is pretty cool. Next one, Austria. Now, Austria is very important in the way that it introduces you into the idea of the Holy Roman Empire, as Austria starts off as the emperor. Now, it means that, plus, you don't really need to expand outside the empire, you can just sort of concentrate on passing the Imperial Reforms. Now, the Imperial Reforms is a set of reforms. It's historically accurate. It's where, eventually, once you take the last reform, which does take quite a while, you effectively form the Holy Roman Empire, which controls every single bit of this, all here. But yeah, it's pretty freaking awesome. I've done it once, and it was amazing, because you just have so many troops and everything. Okay, next point is the Ming. Now, an interesting thing about the Ming is that quite often they do explode, which is a bit of a problem, as if you don't control your rebels, they will explode into about like 10-15 different mini countries, which isn't the best. But yeah, they have some reasonable ideas. See, fort maintenance, idea cost, fort defense, garrison size, discipline, stability costs, production efficiency, trade efficiency, national tax, land fire, and better relations over time. Plus, they also start as an empire, which is pretty sweet. They are also they start as the biggest nation in the world, which is pretty good, as it means that you can relatively easy conquer stuff. As you can see, you can take all of this relatively easily, as you start off with quite a large army. Okay, and my last nation. Now, this may seem like a bit of a weird choice, but I'm gonna say Denmark, because Denmark also introduces you to the personal union story, as you start off with the personal union over Norway and Sweden. Now, this isn't quite like a very start. I wouldn't suggest this as your first campaign, as quite often Sweden will try and gain its independence, which is also an interesting thing that you quite often learn as Denmark. So basically, if you are under a personal union or you are a vassal under a country, once you have a thing called liberty desire, and that means that if you are more powerful than the country that controls you, it is much easier for you to gain your independence, as once you have over 50 liberty desire from any way possible, there is multiple ways, you can effectively declare an independence war, which is what Sweden does, as quite often it will gain support from Novgorod. You can also gain support from Scotland and Lithuania. Although normally they don't take Lithuania. Sometimes Scotland does get in. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting start. It's not really the easiest, but it is quite fun. But yeah, you gotta try and expand quickly. Plus, it also sort of introduces you to the term of rebels. As you can see, Gotland starts occupied by rebels. So, so it does sort of teach you the ideas of what rebels do. But yeah, so these have been my top picks for interesting countries to start at those. But yeah, so I've been Twins Play Tekken, and this has been don't really know what to call this, so I'm just gonna say peace.